Have you ever felt, even for a moment, that there's a version of you living an extraordinary life, abundant, free, prosperous, aligned with the natural flow of the universe? What if I told you that this version isn't a distant dream, but a real timeline available right now, just waiting for you to consciously activate it? In this very moment, infinite possibilities coexist. Quantum science has already shown time isn't linear, reality isn't fixed, and you are not a hostage to chance. With clarity and intention, you can choose which reality you want to live. In this video, I'm going to guide you through a deep and powerful path to access and collapse into the richest timeline of your life. A journey of reconnection with your millionaire self, vibrationally and energetically. And to begin with power, comment below, I now activate the richest timeline of my life. Let's manifest this new reality together. For decades, science has searched for answers about the nature of reality, time, and consciousness. But it was Jacobo Grinberg, a Mexican neuroscientist and consciousness researcher, who dared to push beyond what is visible and measurable. His studies on the neuronal field and on how the mind projects reality called into question everything we believed about life and the universe. According to Grinberg, reality as we know it is an illusion, a mental construction based on vibrational patterns. In other words, you don't live what is real. You live what you believe is possible. Your mind, resonating with the quantum field, collapses infinite possibilities into a single one, the one you are tuned to right now. By combining these discoveries with principles of quantum physics, we understand that time isn't linear but malleable, and that each mental choice opens portals to different timelines. In other words, there is a version of you already living in prosperity, freedom, and fullness, and what separates you from that version is only your vibration. And that is exactly what you'll learn here: how to tune into the richest timeline of your life and stay there. From a very early age, we were conditioned to think of time as a straight line, past, present, and future arranged in sequence like chapters in a book. But this view, although useful for everyday life, is an illusion. Modern quantum physics and Jacobo Grinberg's revolutionary research reveal a far deeper truth. Time is a construction of the mind. And when you realize this, you access the power to consciously choose which timeline you want to live. Einstein already said that time is relative, and laboratory experiments have shown that subatomic particles can exist in different states at the same time, a phenomenon known as quantum superposition. This means multiple realities coexist simultaneously, waiting only for an observer to choose them. Now apply this to your life. There's a version of you living in scarcity, insecurity, and limitation. But there's also another version that has already reached freedom, abundance, and wholeness. Both are real, both exist. The difference lies in which one you're tuned to right now. Jacobo Grinberg went further. He showed that the human mind creates a field called the neuronal field, which acts as a bridge between individual consciousness and the unified field of all possibilities. This field is sensitive to what you think, feel, and believe. And most importantly, it responds to your vibrational state. When you firmly believe your reality is scarce and difficult, that's what the field mirrors back. But when you begin to vibrate in trust, expansion, and worthiness, a new timeline starts to form before your eyes. Time, therefore, isn't a fixed road, but a network of possible trails. Every decision, thought, or emotion you emit is like a command that repositions your consciousness at a specific frequency. And that frequency determines which timeline you access. That's why some people seem to level up in life almost magically, while others remain stuck in the same cycles for years. The difference isn't luck, talent, or fate. It's the mental and emotional frequency they sustain every day. When you grasp this truth, something inside you begins to open. You no longer need to cling to a single life narrative. You can choose again. At any moment, you can activate the most abundant and powerful version of your existence. And that choice begins when you realize time doesn't drag you. You are the one who navigates it. Now, the next step is learning how to collapse those possibilities so that only one of them, the richest, most expansive, most aligned, becomes your lived reality. Quantum physics presents a principle that profoundly challenges our common perception of reality. The observer influences the outcome. This phenomenon is known as the collapse of the wave function. In experiments like the double-slit experiment, subatomic particles behave differently when they are being observed. In other words, the mere presence of consciousness alters the behavior of matter. What does this mean for your practical life? It means you are literally a co-creator of your reality. Everything that exists as possibility, wealth, health, love, freedom, remains in a state of superposition until you, with your attention and emotional energy, collapse one of those options into concrete experience. The world isn't happening to you, it's responding to you. Jacobo Grinberg understood this deeply. In his theory of the neuronal field, he proposed that the mind is a vibrational antenna that, by interacting with the unified field of reality, projects the experiences we call real life. This projection happens unconsciously for most people, but it can be guided consciously by those who master their attention and intention. Here's a crucial point. What you repeatedly observe grows stronger. If your mind is always focused on debts, scarcity, fear of the future, or comparison with others, those elements become increasingly solid on your timeline. You are collapsing every day the version of your life that corresponds to those emotions. But if you shift your focus to elevated possibilities, even if they're still invisible to your eyes, you begin to collapse a new reality, richer, freer, and more aligned with who you truly are. It's as if reality were a fertile field waiting for seeds. Your observations, thoughts, and emotions are those seeds, and the energy with which you water them determines the kind of harvest that will come. You are always collapsing something, consciously or unconsciously. The difference between living by default or living by design lies in knowing what you're choosing to observe. That's why the practice of presence is so powerful. When you become aware of what you're feeling, thinking, and visualizing, you take your seat as the master of your own reality. And at that point, it no longer matters what happened before, because at every instant, you have the power to collapse a new timeline. The choice lies in your observation, and now that you understand this, you're ready to intentionally activate the richest version of your existence. Imagine for a moment that there is, right now, a version of you living with total financial freedom. Waking up every day in peace, with quality time, in a dream home, surrounded by people who inspire you. This version isn't a fantasy or a future projection. It already exists in the field of infinite possibilities. What's missing is vibrational alignment. Jacobo Grinberg taught that the mind doesn't just interpret reality, it creates it. And the neuronal field, which we all have access to, is shaped by the contents of our consciousness. This means that to activate the timeline of your millionaire self, you first need to embody that version's vibrational frequency before any external evidence shows up. The most common mistake people make is waiting to feel prosperous only after the money arrives. But in quantum physics, the sequence is reversed. You feel first, and reality responds after. The millionaire self isn't just an idealized character, it's a real energetic identity that already lives within you, waiting to be awakened. And the process begins with a powerful question. How does the self who already lives in abundance behave? That self doesn't live in haste, fear, or scarcity. It acts with presence, confidence, and clarity. It invests in itself, cares for the body, organizes its finances, and makes decisions with a long-term vision. not out of obligation, but because its natural frequency is already elevated. As you observe these traits, you begin to energetically emulate that version. And that intentional simulation triggers the collapse into your new timeline. A simple practice is the meeting with the millionaire self. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and visualize yourself living the life you desire. Get into the details. Where you live, how you dress, what decisions you make, how you speak, who you spend time with. The more vivid the experience, the stronger the signal you send to the quantum field. But don't stop there. Feel it. Feel the gratitude of living that way. Feel the relief, expansion, and ease of being that person. That is the code the universe understands. Now bring that energy into the present. Ask yourself, what can I do today that aligns with that version? It might be as simple as organizing your space, making a wiser financial decision, or starting a project you've been postponing. Every aligned gesture reinforces the frequency of the millionaire self and weakens your attachment to timelines of scarcity. Remember, you're not just attracting a new reality, you're becoming someone compatible with it. And when that inner transformation happens, the quantum field responds precisely. Everything you desire already exists. It's up to you to live from the inside out. There's a moment each day when the veil between the conscious and the subconscious becomes thin as mist. An invisible portal opens, and whatever you feel, think, or visualize in that instant becomes a direct command to the universe. This moment comes every night, just before you fall asleep. And that's where one of the most transformative practices comes in: nighttime vibrational reprogramming. Jacobo Grinberg studied altered states of consciousness and revealed that in the so-called hypnagogic state, the brain shifts from alpha waves to theta waves, the same mental frequency as a child in the first years of life. In this state, the subconscious is completely open and receptive. Whatever you repeatedly place there will be accepted as truth, and in a short time will manifest as reality. Most people waste this sacred moment by reliving frustrations, financial worries, scenes of rejection, or fear of the future. The result? They keep collapsing night after night, the same limiting timelines. But when you learn to use this window consciously, change becomes inevitable. The practice is simple, but it requires commitment. As you lie down, switch off external stimuli, phone, TV, notifications. Lie comfortably and start by breathing deeply for a few minutes. Allow your body to fully relax. When you feel you're between sleep and wakefulness, repeat a single powerful affirmation, such as, "I already live in complete abundance. Everything is always flowing in my favor." Or, "I am the frequency of wealth. Everything I touch expands." Don't repeat it like a robot. Feel it. Imagine that affirmation is already a description of your current life. Visualize in the greatest detail that reality unfolding, waking up in your dream home, looking at a prosperous bank statement, living in peace, giving, investing, growing. Now, the most important part, fall asleep inside that emotional image. Let yourself drift off feeling prosperous. This seals the frequency into your subconscious. You've planted a new seed, and each night is like watering that new vibrational field. Over time, something subtle but profound begins to happen. You wake up different, lighter, more intuitive, more motivated. Small synchronicities appear. People show up. Unexpected opportunities begin to line up. Not by chance, but because the outer reality starts organizing itself to reflect the new identity you're carrying. This practice is a direct way to step out of autopilot and take conscious command of your dominant frequency. It replaces old patterns, dissolves limiting beliefs, and gradually builds a new vibrational timeline where abundance isn't a possibility but a natural consequence of your new inner state. Visualizing, feeling, and affirming are powerful steps, but there's an indispensable factor for sustaining the new timeline: acting as if it were already real. This is one of the most overlooked keys by those seeking transformation. It's not enough to think like the millionaire self. You need to behave like that self, even if your current reality hasn't yet caught up. This alignment among mind, emotion, and action redefines your vibrational field and consequently your reality. Behavior is the vibrational proof of your belief. If you affirm wealth but make decisions based on fear of lack, you're sending contradictory signals. The quantum field responds to your coherence, not just your words. Acting as if means taking steps consistent with the reality you desire, even before it becomes visible. Think of the millionaire self again. How does that self handle money? How does it organize time? What dietary, social, or spiritual habits does it cultivate? Which commitments does it accept or decline? Start integrating small daily actions that represent this new identity. This isn't about showing off, it's about energetic alignment. For example, if that version of you takes care of the environment where it lives, start organizing your physical space today. If it values knowledge, set aside time to read, study, and improve. If it makes decisions with clarity, start practicing conscious choices, even in small things. Each of these actions is like a code you send to the quantum field saying, "I'm ready." Another powerful point is your emotional posture in the face of challenges. The old version might have reacted with despair, guilt, or paralysis, but the self who lives in abundance treats obstacles as temporary adjustments toward growth. That shift in attitude already changes your vibrational field. It's important to understand that acting as if isn't pretending. It's energetically anticipating the reality you want to live in a genuine way. It means living according to frequency, not appearance. And that requires presence, discipline, and a daily choice. There's even a detail few people notice. The universe tests your vibration through your actions, not to punish you, but to verify whether you've really aligned with the new identity. You say you want prosperity, but when an opportunity appears, do you shrink back? You say you want growth, but do you avoid investing in yourself? Every action reveals the timeline you're vibrating on. So start acting now like someone who is already prosperous, even if you're starting from zero. This magnetic posture attracts people, ideas, resources, and circumstances compatible with your new version. Because in the end, the outer world always responds to the identity you sustain within. Something magical and deeply logical happens when you consistently sustain a new vibrational identity. Reality begins to reorganize itself to reflect that new frequency. Not as a coincidence, but as a natural consequence of the laws that govern the quantum field. Jacobo Grinberg showed that the external world isn't something fixed, but a mirror shaped by the mental waves we project from the neuronal field. This means the world around you is a direct reflection of the identity you believe to be true. And when that identity changes, everything changes. People begin to see you differently. Opportunities that once slipped by unnoticed reveal themselves. Paths open. Unlikely connections happen. Not because the universe changed, but because you changed the lens through which you observe and interpret everything. Your mind, now reprogrammed to recognize abundance, begins to activate the reticular activating system, RAS, which filters reality and starts highlighting elements aligned with your new version. And here's the most striking part. Reality responds with pinpoint precision to the vibration you sustain. If you live as someone who feels worthy, loved, and prosperous, the universe arranges itself to confirm that truth. That's why so many people report miracles after periods of deep mental reprogramming. Reality isn't resisting change. It's simply waiting for you to lead the change from the inside out. This new identity isn't built only with words or thoughts, but with coherent emotional energy. It's feeling that you deserve it, that you're ready, that you already are. When that feeling becomes dominant, you stop acting like someone who is seeking and start acting like someone who already lives what they desire. That's the turning point. And yes, there will be moments of testing. The old reality may try to pull you back with unexpected events or old emotions. But if you hold your frequency, those tests dissolve like smoke before the fire of your new awareness. Because the quantum field doesn't respond to doubt, it responds to certainty. Reality starts conspiring in your favor. Small synchronicities become normal. What once seemed distant now approaches naturally. Because now you're no longer trying to manifest something, you're expressing what you've already become. And when that happens, life is never the same. You will no longer be someone who merely believes in change. You will be living proof that reality responds perfectly to your new vibrational identity. Now that you've understood the depth of this knowledge and accessed the wisdom that connects science, spirituality, and creative consciousness, the choice is in your hands. You can keep feeding the older versions of yourself, those that live in fear, scarcity, and doubt, or you can assume, starting today, the vibrational identity that already lives on the richest timeline of your life. Remember, change doesn't happen when something external arrives. It happens when you decide to embody a new frequency, and that decision isn't just mental. It's energetic, emotional, and behavioral. It's a quiet commitment to your highest version. So here's the challenge. Over the next 7 days, practice everything you learned here. Use the nighttime technique, visualize, feel, act as if, and watch how reality starts to bend to your new identity. If this content touched you, subscribe to the channel now. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next videos, and share this with someone you love. And of course, leave this phrase in the comments. I now activate the richest timeline of my life. Let this be your turning point.